Hello, teachers, parents, and educational leaders, and welcome to this episode of Breaking Down the B.E.S.T. Now, during this episode, you will get a peek into the members-only area where I have tons of resources to help you make math fun, make it click, and make it stick. There should be a link somewhere around this video where you can learn more. All right, now that we got that out of the way, let's get to it, and let's break down the standard. Welcome to Breaking Down the B.E.S.T, a video series dedicated to breaking down Florida's best standards for math. So grab something to write with and maybe even a snack. This looks good. And don't forget to put a smile on your face. There you go, I see you. And let's dive into today's best standard. Hello everyone. My name is Sarah McCarthy and I am so excited that you are spending some time with me today as we talk about the following standard. Today we're going to be working on MA.4.AR.1.1. MA, that stands for math, 4 for 4th grade, AR stands for algebraic reasoning, and 1.1 is our standard for today. The standard says to solve real-world problems involving multiplication and division of whole numbers, including problems in which remainders must be interpreted within the context. Meaning, what does the remainder mean? For instance, here, if we have a group of 243 students taking a field trip and they are traveling in vans, and each van can hold 8 students, then the group would need 31 vans. Even though the quotient is 30 remainder 3, we cannot leave those 3 students behind, so we need to round our quotient up because we cannot leave those 3 students behind. So it's really understanding the context of the situation and deciding what we do with that remainder. So that involves division, but there is multiplication involved in this standard too. All right. Oh, by the way, this document that I'm marking up all over is provided by the Florida Department of Education. I did not make this. I'm just showing you what I do and how I process through the standards in order to create Taking on the B.E.S.T, which I'll show you the resources that align to the standard in just a moment, okay? Some clarifications. We need to make sure that we include multiplicative comparison questions. Those are questions that have the phrase like times as many when we're comparing 2 different values and it's using that phrase times as much or times as many. That's a multiplicative comparison. This is just clarification number 2, kind of just breaks down what might happen with the remainder, different kinds of scenarios. When we have a remainder but we just need the whole number part of a quotient, that means that we're dropping the remainder. We might have situations where we have the whole number part of the quotient with the remainder, and that's where we keep the remainder. This might be like if you're sharing cookies and maybe you have 1 cookie left that you're sharing with 2 people. Well, you could split it in half and use that remainder of 1 and keep it. When you have the whole number part of the quotient plus 1, like in our van situation where we had to add another van, that is where we are rounding the remainder up. And for multiplication, we are limited to 3 digits by 2 digits, and division is limited to 4 digits divided by 1 digit. For the related benchmarks that you need to know, we have the NSO.2 standards, a few of them here, and these all involve operations with multi-digit numbers, so we will be using those in this context with multiplication and division. MA.4.M.1.2 is our converting measurements standard. M.2.1 is a 2-step with distance and time, so there's a lot of multiplication and division involved with that, and we will get there at another time. GR.1.3 is our real world angle measurements, and the 2.1 and 2.2 for the GR standards involve perimeter and area. So those are some that are related to this standard that we can use what we're learning now to help us with those standards later on. Some terms that you need to know. Number 1, equation. This example right here has an equal sign. This is an equation where 4 times 34 is considered the expression, just the pieces, the numbers and the symbols without the equal sign, okay? Vertical alignment, where are they coming from? Well, in 3rd grade, they practice with 1 and 2-step word problems with all 4 operations, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. So that will help with the standard in 4th grade. And where are they going to? In 5th grade, they have a standard where they have multi-step word problems with 4 operations, and they will also interpret the remainders there. Okay? Scrolling down to the purpose and instructional strategies section, it says that the purpose of this benchmark is to have students solve problems involving multiplication and division by using and discussing various approaches. We will be using estimation. So right now I'm just pointing out some things that jump out at me. Make sure we use estimation when we can, and allow many opportunities to solve multiplicative comparisons. Those are those times as many problems. This breaks down some more of what we do with a quotient. So definitely take a look at that. Like for instance here, this example was 7 remainder 2, but we would need to round up to 8 cars. If we're using only the remainder, maybe the remainder is 3, and the question is saying how much money will go to his sister. So the answer is the remainder. The $3 left over will go to the sister. Or dropping the remainder. If Alicia has $48 and wants to purchase meals that cost $10, she cannot purchase for all 5 friends, because when she divides 48 by 10, the quotient is for remainder 8. That's not enough, so the most amount of meals that she can purchase would be 4 meals, and that would be dropping the remainder there. Common misconceptions and errors. It says that the students will have remainders that are expressed as are, and it does not make sense. For instance, giving an answer of 5 remainder 2 vans. Well, if it's in the context of a problem, that wouldn't make sense to say, excuse me, I need 5 remainder 2 vans. So a lot of the misconceptions will be that a student understands that division is used, but then doesn't manipulate the answer to match what's being asked in the problem. So it's important for us as teachers to explain the quantities throughout, to teach our students how to explain the quantities throughout. Students might also have trouble seeing the remainder as a fraction. So we talked about that before with cookies, that if we had 1 cookie left over, we could say, even though there's 1 cookie left over, we could split that cookie in half, and that remainder of 1 could become 1/2. Or in this case, if we're sharing 7 cupcakes among 3 people, the quotient would be 2 remainder 1, which doesn't make sense for this problem. But it could make sense to say that each person gets 2 1/3 of cupcakes. Here, these instructional tasks that they provided, I said are great for math tasks. My suggestion might be, because just throwing this at them when you read it, like create an example where you have to add 1 to the quotient, that might be a little bit too challenging for some of your students. So maybe just throwing in, suggesting a topic or a setting, instead of just giving them a blank canvas to go, right? They can still do it, maybe saying, okay, so we're at a pizza shop. Create a scenario where we would have to add 1 to the quotient. Just to give them a setting, they might be able to create an equation, create a scenario a little bit easier. Okay? And this one down here I noticed was a multi-step problem. So I kind of said, I didn't really get the idea that it was a multi-step standard, so I'll have to look a little bit deeper into this, but if you're combining it with another standard, sure, it can be a multi-step equation. But for this one, I was like, because if Sam has $50 to spend on video games, and then he buys 1 video game, so first he's subtracting 26 from his $50, and then he's using his leftover money to buy 9 games. That's kind of more of a multi-step problem going on here, with subtraction first and then division, which I'm totally cool with, and they do experience in 4th grade. I just didn't get any of the clues that a multi-step problem was involved in this standard. So just kind of like, as an example there. But hey, I think that's it for going over the standard. Now let's go ahead and see what resources you have available to you on McCarthyMathAcademy.com. So you're going to click Members Enter here, taking on the B.E.S.T, 4th grade. The standard that we are working on is in the AR strand, and it is 4.AR.1.1, Multiplication and Division Word Problems. Click that. And these are your bronze resources. So if you are a bronze, silver, or gold member, you do have access to these. These are video lessons with printable student guides that you can see right over here. The first video lesson focuses on multiplication word problems. Here's the printable guide that goes with that. Okay, you can see here, Rosita earns 3 times as much as Blake. So we're using this word problem in the video and then saying Rosita earns 3 times as much. That's an example of that multiplicative comparison that we were talking about there. So multiplication word problems, bam. Then we have division word problems, where with the remainders where we use it. So here are 2 problems where the remainder is something that we need to use at the end. In this one, it's a division word problem with remainders where we either round it or drop it. So we have that printable guide that goes with that right there. And we do not just jump right in and look at the number. A big component with this standard and many of the real world problem standards and the B.E.S.T standards is not just to grab the quantities and run with them, but to understand what's going on with the problem. So we do take a lot of time to do that in these videos. Not a lot of time to do that, but we take the time necessary to do that. Okay, so bronze, you got your video lessons and your printables. There are 3 video lessons there. If you have the silver or the gold plan, you have access to the silver resources, which involves your math misconception mystery episode, your printables, and your answer keys. So here is the everything, the video lessons and the extra practice pages and more right here in this download. So that right here, this is the video lesson because it has the icon. Then we have extra practice pages looking very similar to what we just did in the video, so students can practice on their own. Video lesson, extra practice, video lesson, extra practice. Okay, here is the math mission, which is a math task. So we're taking real word settings. We've got a multiplication problem here. We've got a multiplicative comparison problem for part 2. And then I believe a problem involving division for part 3. And then this is the math misconception mystery, which has the video lesson icon because it is a video lesson right there. You just click play and then I walk you through everything. I say, okay, here's your problem for today. And your students will solve it either on their own or with a group. Then they will watch as 4 characters solve that same problem. The 4 characters are really just me dressed up in silly costumes, and 3 of those characters will make a mistake that students commonly make. Only 1 of the characters will solve it correctly, and then they fill out this detective report right here, where they're analyzing the character that was correct and evaluating the work of the ones who were not correct. Okay? Answer keys are right there too. And then if you are a gold member, you have access to even more. Let's check out what you have that aligns to this standard. We've got the mini assessment and the answer key. Here is a mini assessment with a variety of question types. There you go, all aligned to this standard of AR.1.1. This breaking down the B.E.S.T video is a little perk of being ad-free and right here with all of the other resources for the gold members. Currently you are watching it, so this is where that video will end up as soon as I finish editing it. It is available on YouTube though too. You just have the ads on YouTube where the gold members get it without the ads. But the main highlight of having the gold plan is because you also have access to McCarthy Math 155, which is a daily math intervention that I created that's aligned to the Common Core standards. Now, we're in a different set of standards now, but there is a lot that does trickle over. So if we go to 4th, I'll show you some of the things that you can use for this if you have the gold plan. Okay, so since we're working with multiplication and division, well, if your students are struggling with multiplication, you can go right here to Unit 3. And check this out. We've got multiplicative comparisons to practice. Lots of multiplicative comparisons and word problems with multiplicative comparisons. Lots of practicing with multiplying. So check that out. So much. The area model, partial products, which operation. So if you need extra multiplication practice, and I know that your students probably do, then if you have McCarthy Math 155, you can absolutely use these video lessons and printables to help you out. If I go back, there's also division right here. So there you go. I'm just going to scroll a little bit. You can see all these division videos are just the skill, practicing the skill of division. So if you're thinking, oh my goodness, I wish I just had time for my students to practice their multiplication and practice their division, this is the intervention that will help you out with that. It's aligned to Common Core, but like I said, we divide in taking on the B.E.S.T with the B.E.S.T standards. This is just extra practice for you. Okay? All right, I think that is it. So I hope that that was helpful for you to see what the standard entails and what resources you have available to you. And before we go, let me remind you that what you are choosing to do with your life as a teacher, it really does matter. I want to thank you so much for everything that you do for your students, for education. I know that this is a tough career. It's an exhausting profession, but it does matter. Thank you for stepping up every day to step into the best version of yourself, because with students, more is caught than taught. So you are showing them how they can become their best selves by you stepping into your best self. Make sense? All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. I know you're busy, so I'll see you next time, okay? Bye. Okay, so I know that I just said goodbye for now, but I'm gonna ask you to do one more thing, okay? If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with your teacher friends or other leaders in education. That's how I get to continue doing what I love to do, which of course is supporting you all to the best of my ability. All right, for real now. Bye.